When I used to work as tunnel engineer, building tunnels and underground excavations for the high-speed railway here in Spain, one of my main duties was to oversee and manage and be responsible for the team of watchers preventing the explosives to be stolen. Yeah? There was like a big security risk with storing dynamite and explosives and detonators, initiators, and it's the kind of stuff you don't want to be stolen from whoever wants to do something nasty with that. And I'm on my duties as a junior engineer. I was meant to be responsible and manage the team of watchers who take care of the explosives. At some point, I've got an issue with one of them, because issues with the performance and the responsive and the accountability that he had, and whatever issues which do not come to the context now, is that I request him and his boss not to work anymore with us, and it was for a particular deadline on a particular Friday. And the issue with this is that there's something curious when it happened by chance that very same Friday I had to come back to the office, to the workplace, after hours, because I had forgot something in the office that I needed to take back. And the point of coming back to this story is that, what happened is that the watcher, the guardian, was there in place. There were a few details that it was an issue for him to be there, and this kind of job for tunnel engineers, general tunnel engineer, with working with a lot of quite curated miners, very experienced people, is that, sometimes it was not just an intelligence job. The main trait that you need to unfold for this job was to be tough, to be a tough guy, and to be the boss, and to be a leader. And that was not just an ego game, it was what was actually expected from me. So at some point, we started to have some kind of a standoff between he and me. Nevertheless, the rest, many of the team, his colleagues for the team of guardians, of watchers, they were already there. They were present, and they were very, very curious to see what happened and how anyone will react, and these kind of things, and many other stuff from the tunnel, because the tunnel, it was 24/7, never stopping. It was a continuous kind of scheduling for the work. So at any point, we had staff there. So I needed to show a degree of command and say, okay, this cannot be tolerated, and this guy should be out of here right now, at that moment. Which I was telling is a very complicated thing, because these guys carry guns. They are armed guards. They are armed watchers. They could not have the guns with themselves when they are out of shift and they're not working at that time. And there was a lot of administrative minor details that it was very difficult for him and for his boss to get with a solution with that. And after calling his boss again and reiterating that this is not the thing that should be happening. The only thing left remaining for me was to contact the police, what we call here kind of police workforce, which we call Guardia Civil. That was like the nuclear option. And it will cause a lot of mess for him, for me, for his boss, for the workplace. We didn't want to go there, but I was starting to show committed to go to the very end of this. And one of the other things is that this guy was facing some very tough situations personally in his life and his private life, percolating to his work, to his professional life. A lot of things that people have with their lifetime for some time, or not even everyone, but this guy were actually having them. And neither he or I wanted to back off and say, okay, let's leave it like this. I couldn't, he was not able to. The funny thing is that, as I was telling, this guy was armed, and at some point I started to look at him and realized by looking at him into his eyes that this guy was desperate and he was open to do anything. Not anything in particular, but anything. Realizing that, and the attention and the tension that everyone has high expectations of this kind of expected fight between us, I suddenly got to some kind of state of mind, or even not mind. It is what I call hyperawareness. I was starting to realize and to be aware at a very tangible level, at a high degree of intensity and realization that it is happening here, right now. It was very special. I had before some glimpses of this feeling, but not somehow in real time while doing kind of intense activity as this was. But I was able to do the activity, act, react, and at the same time be fully aware of the present moment, of my own feelings, thoughts, and actions. That it felt like superpowers. The degree of command of my behavior, the clarity of mind, the command of the situations, the command of the situation, the degree of courage, of self-control that I was able to exert. It was a feeling that I had kind of opened the radio and connected to an antenna and received like the instructions in perfect clarity. The degree of command, the articulating of my words, of my speech. It felt like in the movie, in the novel for Dune, it felt like I was in full command of the voice. I could say something to anyone. They couldn't even refuse to being dragged by my commands. I was approaching to him, telling things, showing in front of the rest of the team that I was at a higher level, commanding a deeper version of the truth, being able to articulate it in a way which anyone could refuse, anyone could reject or argue against. It was just amazing. And the feeling was that it was not myself the one doing this, simply that somehow trying to wrap up my mind around this, it was this sense of openness that to a higher flow, a higher wisdom, and I was not in charge. It was simply flowing through me, but at the same time, I was the one leading the whole thing, the full situation. After very tense situations and very tense moments, with no fight broke in that day. Nobody had to call the police. I couldn't fully recall the details about how was the situation resolved. Because some years ago, it's like probably 15 years ago, even more. But the point is that it doesn't matter. What matters is that I cannot forget the sense of command, of articulation, of clarity of mind that this, what I call hyperawareness, brought to me. There is a second profound experience that I had a couple of years after this, which is somehow unrelated, but I'm starting to feel with the passing of the years that there is a very strong common denominator for both of them. I was very engaged into exploring lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is, you are dreaming and suddenly you realize that, okay, this is a dream. Moreover, even when you have these lucid dreams, you are able sometimes not only to be aware of the fact that this is just a dream, well, this is actually a dream, but as well that you can get in control because you can exert your will. Because, okay, this is something that is in your mind and you can do whatever you want because it's your mind and it's your dream and you own it and you do whatever you want. I was experiencing with some techniques like mild and wild and think that, okay, do some kind of preparations, awake some at some certain points of your dream cycles and these kind of things. None of these details worked at the end for me. I don't know why, because for discipline or for my predisposition, or, I don't know. Probably keeping the journal and trying to right away after waking up, try to recall the dream, to write it down before it vanishes and dissolves into your subconscious and goes somewhere else and you forget about it. And right after waking up, the recalling it's much stronger. And the other thing was kind of just wanted to do it, keep it in your mind through the day. Okay, why is not this dream? And could I get a lucid dreaming tonight? And keeping in the back of your mind as long as you can throughout the day and throughout your daily life. And sometimes it happened. One night it happened. I was in the middle of the street, in the middle of the road, in front of my parents' house. No cars, no anything, just normal thing. And suddenly, I start to look around. This is a dream. I am dreaming. This is my dream. Okay, oh my God, this is the lucid dreaming. Finally, it arrived. And it started, the previous thing to the dream, the previous story, is not that important for this context, but it was like a little statue, like a little piece of resembling Isis, the goddess, the Egyptian goddess. Somehow my father was involved and kind of a store where I found the little statue for Isis. Well, a few things that do not add that much to the main idea of suddenly becoming aware that this is a dream. And the feeling started to be so intense. Oh my God, it's like an emotion, like, oh my God, finally. It was like so much expectation that I had prior to that when finally it came, it was full of joy. But this started to become kind of even an arousal. It was, oh my God, it's like a fire, like a very intense feeling coming out of my bowels, coming inside my chest, and wow, lucid dream. And I did nothing but turning my head left. And I started to look into the building of my parents' house, not just the building, but the very corner of the building. Staring at them, I started to see not only the bricks and the concrete and the fabric of it, but the very same particles, molecules, atoms, inside the atoms. I don't know if they were quarks. Obviously, you cannot see quarks with a naked eye, but I was watching carefully every single of the particles, every one of each of them glowing in a million colors, so vibrant, so vivid, the sun reflecting into them. It was like a million rainbows in just a very tiny piece of the corner of the building. But it was not just that. It was that each of these single millions, trillions, zillions particles were part of me, and I was part of them. And it felt, each of them, like a cosmic orgasm. And I had not taken any drugs or anything like that. But each of them was a full orgasm of the whole universe flowing through each of them and reaching my inner part. And I was one of them and feeling each of them. And I was one of them and I was part of all of them. And this whole orgasm reverberated inside me. It was just amazing. It was probably the most wonderful, intense, one of the most of my whole lifetime. Up to that point and since then. So it started to be so intense that, okay, oh my God, I'm losing it. It's going away. The feeling of the lucid dream became so intense that I started to be afraid of not being able to sustain it and to hold it. So I recall one technique that many people mention, that once that it becomes very intense and you start to thinking that you are close to lucid, you look into the palms of your hands and try to somehow stabilize the lucid dream. And I tried to do it, but I couldn't, and it went away. But it was just enough. What else can you ask for? That feeling that the whole universe is an orgasm at every single corner of it, and you are part of it, and this is part of you. You are one and the same. And I couldn't forget it. And why these two profound experiences of mine are related? Why I bring them together among any other ones? I think there is a common layer which is the awareness, is the consciousness. And it's something that, well, it's passing not just myself, but the whole humanity for millennia. What is this thing of the consciousness? What is this awareness? But they're related one another. This is hyperawareness that while doing some actions, that going through a challenging situation, provides you kind of superpowers in clarity and control and command. This kind of disruption field that at some point some people say that Steve Jobs exerts around him. It's a distortion field because he's simply so in tune with the thing, with the moment, that everyone around him was able to do, okay, let's do it. Maybe it's impossible, but who cares? This awareness of act while acting is the same awareness that revealed you that dreaming is just a dream, and it belongs to you, and you can feel it and even command on it. And this awareness is revealing something that I cannot fully grasp yet, but I have some clues about where not an explanation, but a deeper understanding of it could lead to. Is that reality and mind are not that separate. Because when you realize, somehow, I cannot fully comprehend it, but when you realize that this reality is somehow not away from your mind, and your mind is one with the reality, if this frontier, if this wall comes down, you realize that reality is coming out of your mind, which is not the kind of objective thing that we want to think about the universe, that something out there which is independent of us, independent of our mind, of our observations. But at some point you realize that they're inseparable. They're part of the same. You are part of the universe, and the universe is part of you. And once that you are in harmony, in tune with that, you are able to, not able, but you go with it. You cannot bend it towards your will, but your will is not something separate, and there is no conflict. There is no the feeling that, okay, I can't because it's the reality. I cannot bend the reality. That you are with it, and you are not opposites. It's this kind of judo that, okay, don't try to fight against it. Be one with it and drag it down. And by surrendering to it, you win. This kind of dissolving of duality between the ego and the outer, between the reality and the mind, is what is behind the deepest idea of things like Matrix. Matrix. You say you can do flying kicks while doing kung fu. You can jump out of buildings and out of a skyscraper, and if you realize that you believe this is the Matrix and this is not true and this is just a simulation, you do not die, because you do not stamp into the floor, because you know that there is no floor. And that's the full thing when they say, could I, once that I learn to live through the Matrix, could I dodge bullets? And the whole thing is that once that you fully realize, you wouldn't have to.